Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Talk Books episode 6. As always, I am Helen and I am coming to you from Dundee, Scotland, and this is where I get the chance to chat about what I've been reading. So we will do a January wrap up and we will also look ahead to what I am thinking about reading in February. Should we just go straight into it? Let's just go straight into it. So we'll start with January stats. So I read a total of 6 books in January. 3 of them were physical books, 1 was a Kindle book, and 2 were audiobooks. I feel like that was a good mix. That averaged out, it didn't average out at all. That was a total of 2,140 pages, which averaged out at about 356 pages per book. So a pretty standard average. It was quite interesting this month because I had a few bigger books. I had a couple of books that were 500 pages plus, but I also had a few really small books as well. And across the month, I had an average star rating of 4 stars. So a pretty good reading month, actually. So let's go into what the books that I read were. I don't actually have a lot of these as physical books because 2 of them were library books, which I have already taken back to the library. And as I said, 2 of them were audiobooks and 1 of them was a Kindle book. So I don't have a particularly high number of physical books to show you for what I read in January. But the first book that I finished in January was Wolfsong by TJ Klune. Now this is a fantasy romance. It's kind of a werewolf romance. I loved this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. 4.5 stars I gave it. It was such a good story. This was my first ever TJ Klune book and I am hooked. As you will see by other books I'm going to talk about in this episode. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. We follow Ox and Joe and their extended family. Let's go with that. Ox is human. When we first meet him, he is relatively young. We learn a little bit about his childhood. He has a lot of abandonment issues from his dad, who was not a very nice person and constantly told him that he'd never amount to anything and that people would always treat him badly. And we also follow Joe, who, again, when we meet him, he's relatively young. He's about 12 when we first meet him. He is a young werewolf. He has been through a very traumatic experience. And as a result of that, he has been non-verbal for quite a while. And we learn a little bit about them to start with, and then they meet when when Ox is 16 and Joe is 12. They meet for the first time. And when they meet, something about Ox brings Joe out of his shell. He talks for the first time in a long time, and they develop this amazing friendship. And Ox and his mother are kind of brought into Joe's family, the Bennets, and we get this kind of big sense of found family and these 2 boys growing up together and the friendship that they develop. But bad people come and horrible things happen. There is a big attack and it kind of ends up with Joe leaving. And we then follow Ox with the kind of what's happened, and that cup of tea is too hot to hold. We follow Ox with what happens in the aftermath of this and him being left to kind of hold everything together at home. It has loads and loads of found family, with not only with the Bennett family, but also the kind of extended family that he kind of develops around himself once a number of the Bennets have left. It deals with coping with trauma. It deals with forgiveness and the time that forgiveness can take. And it is a romance, as I said. And I think it deals really, really interestingly with the idea of like a fated mates kind of romance, with the fact that when they met, Joe is 12 and Ox is 16. And there is no romance. There isn't even a hint of romance until they are both adults. And I like the way that was dealt with, I thought was done really well, because that is the type of romance that could be a little bit sleazy, it could be a little bit uncomfortable in the way that it's approached, but TJ Klune does a really, really good job with how he kind of comes about it and puts that romance together, considering the age gap at the beginning and everything like that. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this one. Would recommend it to anyone. It is a series, and I can't remember how many books there are in the series, but I'm pretty sure that the next one is called, is it Brother Song, the next one? Anyway, I think there's Raven Song, Heart Song, Brother Song, and I think they follow other members of this extended family. So again, they're all set in the same world, but we learn more about other characters. So I am definitely going to pick up the next one, because this was, yeah, Wolf Song was brilliant. Then I have made notes this time to try and be better at describing things. Then I read 2 audiobooks and it didn't go well for me. And I'm kind of disappointed in how it went for me, because I was expecting to absolutely love this. I listened to All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first book in the Murderbot diaries, and then I followed that up with listening to Artificial Conditions, which is the second book in the Murderbot diaries. So the Murderbot diaries, first of all, follows a sec unit, Murderbot, who's a security unit. It works for a company, like the company in this world, basically, and the security units are placed with people who are out doing missions, out doing research, out doing all kinds of work, and they're there to be part of the security and everything like that. And they're all supposed to have these governor modules in their head, which mean that they will always obey instructions. However, Murderbot has hacked its governor module, and all it really wants to do is sit and watch its TV programmes and be left alone, and that's kind of it. It doesn't want to have to deal with people at all. But, you know, that's the way life goes. I was expecting to love this. I've heard so many good things from it. So many people have recommended it. When I mentioned it on the last episode, so many people in the comments were excited about the fact that I was reading it. But not much has stuck with me about the plot. I feel like I didn't get to know the characters enough. And this is why I went on and read the second one, because they are very, very short. The first one is 144 pages and the second one is 160 pages. So they are very short books. And I think for me, the story suffered because of that. I felt like I just didn't get into the characters enough. I didn't really know enough about them or care enough about them to kind of want to continue. So yeah, the second book gave me a bit more, and I gave the first book 3 stars because it was all right, like it was fine. I gave the second book 3.5 stars because it definitely gave me more. I got more into the story. I was more interested in what was going on. And I don't know if I'll continue the series. I'm not sure yet whether I will continue the series. I did not hate this by any means. It was just all right. And I know so many people that watched the video last time who were like, oh, this is such a good series, you're going to love it. And I'm a bit like, but I don't. I really don't. I didn't love it as much as I was expecting to. And I was just a little bit disappointed with it. I don't know. So I don't know. Do I carry on? Is it one of those series where it gets better and better the more you listen to, the more you read? Because you get more into the characters. Like, do I need to continue on? They are quite short. The audiobooks are only like 3 hours or something like that. So it's a great one to kind of put on while I'm working. And I feel like because they're short, I wouldn't mind kind of going back in and giving the third one a go. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Do I carry on? Is it one of those series that's going to grow on me? Or do I just have to accept that it wasn't for me? I don't know. Anyway, on a more positive note, the next book I read, I loved. I read The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved it. We follow Gaia? I keep mispronouncing it. We follow Gaia, who is, so Gaia lives on a world where basically the only way to get off this world is to earn enough money, and becoming a caver is a good way to earn enough money to get off world and live your own life. And she is looking for her mum. Her mum left her when she was younger, and she is determined to find her mum, but she needs enough money to get off world to hunt her mother down, basically. So she takes a job, there's given very little information. She also fabricates a lot of her experience about caving. Although she is a very, very good climber, she hasn't done the level of caving that this job requires her to do. And we're in a world where there's a lot of really kind of high-tech technology, and within the caves, which are often mined for resources and things like that, there are what are known as tunnelers, which are these giant kind of creatures that are drawn to people in caves. And they're not 100% sure what draws them to people, but they've learned over the years of ways to reduce the risks of tunnelers. So all the cavers go down into the caves wearing these high-tech suits that they're basically surgically implanted into, kind of. They have their gastric systems all surgically attached so that their waste is extracted safely, and they can kind of get food safely, and all of that kind of thing. They also have great kind of displays that mean that they're not always seeing the world in front of them as it is, but they're getting displays that will tell them about currents, and displays that will tell them about rock formations and kind of what's around them in different ways. So really kind of high tech. And Gaia was kind of expecting to go down to this cave and have a team of people on the surface looking out for her, because that's what usually happens with these kind of expeditions. However, she discovers quite quickly that there is only one person who she is in contact with on the surface, and that is M. And M isn't giving her all the information she needs. M is hiding things from her. M has drugged her on occasions without permission. And as she goes further and further into this cave, she learns more and more about the previous expeditions that M has sent down here, what has happened to them, what is potentially going to happen to her if she is not very, very careful. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. There is a lot of paranoia. There is a lot of kind of creepy environmental kind of feelings. It really, really kind of sets the scene really, really well. I also really enjoyed the descriptions of the peril of the climbs that she's doing and the environment that she's in. And there's proper caving going through water descriptions, and that's all done really well. But also the way that the relationship between M and Gaia develops and changes throughout the book is done really, really well. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the fact that you were slowly learnt things as Gaia learnt them. You didn't know what she was doing down there. She didn't know what she was doing down there. She knew she'd been sent down to look for something, but that was about it. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. It would have been a 5-star, but there was one bit at the end of the book just to do with how the relationship between M and Gaia was left at the end of the book that just annoyed me. And I was just like, oh no, that shouldn't happen. And that's what knocked it down 1/2 star for me. If it hadn't been for that ending with it's not even the ending of the book, it's more to do with how their connection, their relationship is left. I would have given it a 5-star. Absolutely. But yeah, really, really good. And I would highly recommend it. I have another Caitlin Starling book on my shelf. I've got, I forgot what it's called. Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling on my shelf. And I am definitely going to be picking that up as soon as I can after reading this one, because I really, really enjoyed it. Oh, my tea is nearly at a drinkable temperature. Right, the next book is, so, as I said, I might have developed a bit of an obsession with TJ Klune. So the next book I read was In the Lives of Puppets, which again was by TJ Klune. This was one of the ones that I picked up from the library. And it was, again, another 4.5-star read for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We follow Victor, who is a human in a world that is now ruled by robots and androids. He lives in the forest with his dad, Geo, who is an android, and also a nurse bot, Nurse Ratchet, who is a nurse robot. She used to be a robot that dealt with all of humans' health problems. She is wonderfully be sarcastic and sociopathic and hilarious. And also little robot vacuum Rambo, who is an anxious little ball of chaos. And they are honestly the best characters. This was so funny. There was so many parts that I just read out to Tom, my husband, because I was like, especially the Nurse Ratched parts. I think Nurse Ratched was my favourite character in this book, because they were just so funny. So basically the concept of this is when exploring the local scrap heap that they go to regularly, because Geo and Victor are inventors, so they're always looking for scrap and stuff for their inventions. They come across a broken android, and Victor decides to bring this android home and repair him and heal him. And so we meet Hap. But this does lead their happy life to be interrupted. And Geo, his father, is taken by other androids, and it sets them off on an adventure to try and find him. And Victor has never left his little part of the forest, but he has to explore the world and find a way to save his father. It has a lot to say about what is humanity, the idea of a world ruled by robots, also what is a soul? Can a robot have a soul? Is there a way for a robot to love? And things like that. Can we make a soul? Is it something that can be created for a non-human? But also a lot about love and family. And yeah, it was brilliant and heartwarming and funny, and I'd absolutely recommend it 100%. And then, I think this is the last one I read. Let me double check. Yes. Then the final book I read in January was A Pirate's Life for Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This is the sequel to You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, and we continue to follow Raina and Chianthe as they go on a mission that was set up at the end of the first book, so I won't tell you too much about it. We meet a few new characters. We meet Bobby, who is a constable, and Serena, who is a pirate, and they're the kind of love interests, the romance. They're kind of the romantic interest, I guess, in this book. But as with the previous book, the romance, although these are kind of billed as a romantic fantasy, I feel like the romance is quite a low level to the story. It's not like the main part of the book in any way. I really enjoyed this. I did have a big break because I actually picked this up in November, and then I didn't read any of it in December, and it wasn't until the end of January that I picked it up. And at one point I was looking at it and going, am I going to pick this back up and finish it again? And I'm really glad I did, because I really did enjoy it, but I found the middle a little bit slow, and I think that was part of the problem. I also found a little bit the introduction of these new characters was a little bit forced. It was like, here's Bobby and Serena, you're supposed to care about them, you're supposed to care about them, like getting together, and all of this kind of stuff. And I feel like, yeah, it was just done in a way that was a little bit forced, and you didn't kind of get to know the characters as genuinely as I feel like I've had in other books. It was more like, here's two new characters and you need to care about them now, rather than here's the two new characters, let's tell you a bit about them, let's introduce you to them, let's let you get to know them, and then we'll develop like what you're supposed to care about, if that makes sense. But yeah, as I said, I found it a little bit slow in the middle, but I'm really glad I did, because it did pick up towards the end and I really enjoyed the ending, and I am definitely going to pick up book 3. I think it comes out in March, I'm not sure. I have got the Waterstones exclusive special editions of both the first book and the second book, which have these gorgeous sprayed edges, and they are signed as well. And I have pre-ordered the special edition of the third book because I want them to match on my shelves. So yeah, so that is that one. I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave the first one 4 stars as well. Really enjoyed them. Just a little bit slower in the middle, I found, with this one. But having said that, I did really enjoy the kind of change of pace that this one had with all the pirate stuff and things like that. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see where the series goes. So let's look at what I'm thinking about reading in February. I haven't set myself as strict a TBR for February as I normally would do. And part of that is because I am just in the mood to pick books up as I fancy them. I don't really want a strict TBR for myself at the moment, but I thought I would share with you a few books that I am kind of drawn towards on my shelves at the moment, as well as a few books that are kind of ones I need to get to. So first of all is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. I am currently reading this one at the moment and I'm doing pretty well. I'm over halfway through. This is the third book in the Life Ship Traders series as part of the Realm of the Elderlings. So it's the final book in the trilogy, and oh, I am so enjoying this. I am so hooked now on the characters. Like, I just don't want to put this down. I can't tell you too much about it. So in this trilogy, we follow various different things. We have life ships, which are sentient ships with figureheads that can talk and move and everything like that. We have pirates. We have the Rainwilds, which are a really interesting part of the world where there's like the rivers are acidic and there's all kinds of interesting things going on there. And yeah, we follow a whole vast array of characters as they kind of interact and intersect. And yeah, it is so interesting. There is so much going on and it is all starting to come together in this final book. And I am, yeah, absolutely hooked. So I definitely want to get this one finished. And I suspect I picked this one up, I don't know when I started this actually, towards the end of January, and I'm already over halfway through. So I am hoping that I should get this finished in the next week. So yeah, that is the first one. I then do have two books that I didn't get to last month that were on my book club list. Again, I don't know which of these I'm going to go for, but I do need to pick up one of them. The first one was Luckenbooth by Jenny Fagan, which is you're following a tenement and all of the residents of this tenement in Edinburgh over generations, starting from a point, I think, where the Devil's Daughter comes to Edinburgh and has a baby for a woman who couldn't have a baby. So she ends up, I guess, with the devil's grandchild as her child, and this curses this tenement block. And we then follow the generations and how this affects them throughout the years. That's kind of as much as I know about that one. And then the second book that I had for my book club was The Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is a really interesting book. Again, I've talked about it before, so I won't go into too much detail, but it is told in mixed media of emails and text messages and all of that kind of thing, rather than in prose. And we are following two lawyers who are putting together all of the information about a murder that happened with an amateur dramatic society, I believe, something like that, basically. But I've heard good things about it and it's meant to be really interesting. So yeah, one of those two books I'm hoping to get to in February. I just don't know quite which. I mean, maybe even both of them. We will see how the month goes, I guess. And then the other book that I could do with getting to this month, because it's a library book, is this one here. This is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is sci-fi, and this again has come highly recommended. So we follow a astronaut, Ryland Grace, who is the sole survivor on a desperate mission to save Earth. However, he has been rudely awoken in the middle of this from like deep sleep, I guess, to find that he is the only one left alive on this ship, and he has no memory of what he's doing there, what he's supposed to be doing, or anything like that. And this mission is like a last-ditch effort to save humanity, and he really needs to work out what's happening if he's going to be able to save humanity. So yeah, it sounds really interesting. It sounds really good. And again, this is my attempt to get more sci-fi read. So we will give that one a go. Then I was browsing my shelves. I've got 3 other books, one of which will probably make you laugh, but we'll see. So first of all, I picked up in the supermarket the other day. I saw this and I just couldn't resist. It sounded so much like fun. So I picked up this book, The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Quresh. This is a kind of cozy romance. We follow Saphira, who owns a coffee shop, which is a baby dragon cafe. So people are allowed to bring their baby dragons. So this is obviously a world where dragons exist and people own dragons as pets and things like that. But the baby dragons cause lots of chaos, and she has lots of fires to deal with, and she's constantly having to repair the cafe, and it's a lot of work. And then she meets the local heartthrob, Aidan, who is a gardener. He has a baby dragon who is very disobedient. So they come up with a plan that if Saphira will train his baby dragon, he will pay her enough for her to repair her coffee shop. And then it's a romance. So obviously they become attracted to each other and I assume fall in love. But that is that one. It sounds really fun. It sounds like it's a Grumpy Sunshine kind of thing, with the gardener Aidan being grumpy and Saphira being kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of sunshine character. So yeah, it sounds really, really fun. So I would like to give that one a go this month. And then there's two others. So one of them is a book that I have been kind of avoiding because of the hype. And I'm still not sure whether I want to read it because of the hype. But there has been so much hype recently because the third book in the series has come out and everyone is raving about it on all of the social media spaces that I am on. And I kind of feel like I need to pick the first one up just to see what happens. And I've had it on my bookshelf for ages. I picked up a copy for cheap in the works. And I just haven't read it because the hype has been so much. And that is, of course, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So this follows Violet, who becomes a dragon rider. She ends up going to a dragon training school, but she is, from what I've read, she has some physical disabilities that mean she wouldn't normally be a dragon rider. And it's quite a vicious kind of world. And it's like an enemies to lovers kind of thing with lots of dragons. I honestly, actually, considering all the hype, I don't actually know that much about the synopsis of this one at all. I will read the book quickly, but read the back. I'll just sit here and read the whole book to you, shall I? No. It says, Violet Sorrengail expected to live a quiet life surrounded by books, until she was forced onto the world's deadliest training ground. Now she must fight to join the army's elite, dragon riders. But dragons don't choose fragile riders, they incinerate them. And when your body breaks as easily as Violet's does, death is only a heartbeat away. Many would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her simply because of her last name, including the ruthless Xaden Ryerson, her family's greatest enemy. With the odds stacked against her, Violet must use every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Because once you enter Basgaith War College, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. So yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like something I would really enjoy. So we're going to maybe give it a go this month. We will see. We will see how we get along with other books and things like that. But it's definitely one that I am very tempted to pick up, just because I need to break the hype and give it a go. I may hate it, and then I don't have to read the other two in the series. But we'll see. And then the final book that is screaming to me on my shelves. This is also one you have seen a few times because I have mentioned it a few times and I haven't got to it a few times. But now, having had a bit of a TJ Klune kick, is of course this one. I have had this on my shelves for so long. This is House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I have given it a synopsis for you before, but I can never remember it particularly. But basically, we follow Linus and Arthur. I believe Arthur he runs an orphanage for dangerous children with magical powers. And Linus is like, he lives a quiet life and he works for the department in charge of magical use. And but anyway, somehow, for some reason, he ends up at this orphanage because of these dangerous children. And him and Arthur grow closer. That's kind of all I know. I know that was a very, very bad description of it, but it's very hard to give a synopsis of a book you haven't read yet. But yeah, I need to get to this one. I know I'm going to love it, especially now, having read two other TJ Klune books and loved them. I know I'm going to love it. So yeah, it is definitely one that I would really like to get to this month. So yeah. Not a particularly strict TBR. I don't know whether I will pick these ones up, but they are the books that I am leaning towards this month. And we will see how we go. So let me know in the comments, have you read any of these books? What did you think of them? Have you got any other suggestions based on the books that I have read that you think I might enjoy? Let's talk books in the comments. And if you have got to this point in the video, if you've got to the end, then leave me the dragon emoji, because that book features dragons, that book features dragons, and that book features dragons. So yeah, leave me the dragon emoji if you have got to the end of the video, and I will see you again in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.